Hi, budding engineers. Welcome to the structural engineering lectures on the finite element methods. In the previous class, we have seen 3D axisymmetric solids of revolutions using 2D three-noded ring element. In today's class, we shall see 3D problems or 3D analysis using one 3D four-noded tetrahedron elements like this, or 3D 8-noded brick element, right? Now, coming to the discussions on the first discussion on 3D 4-noded tetrahedron element, students, right? This is a basic element because we do have only just four nodes, right? Now, I do consider a 3D problem like this, wherein it is having a generalized geometry, right? Where it is having some boundary conditions, right? And it is subjected to different sets of loads, right? One, it's a self-weight acting at the CG of the 3D continuum, and different traction forces are acting, right? Like this, right? On the surfaces, and the concentrated loads may also be acting like this. Concentrated loads may also be acting at different locations in different directions. Then that is how a generalized body is now shown, uh, which is having a total surface area of A and cross-sectional area A, and total surface area S, and the total volume of this 3D body or 3D problem as V, right? And these are the boundary conditions, right? Maybe fixed or hinged as appropriate and subjected to the different sets of loads. The body forces, or the volume forces acting on the volume, and two, the traction forces which are acting on the surface areas, and three, the point loads, concentrated loads, if any, acting in different directions, right? Then this 3D problem has three displacement, students, right? One, the displacement in x, right, and y and z directions, right? u v w. Then correspondingly, this is the displacement in x, u, and y, v, and w in z directions respectively. Then corresponding to that, the displacement vector 3 by 1 vector, we do have the strain vector is a 6 by 1 vector, which is having the three terms of the normal strains epsilon x, epsilon y, epsilon z, right? Acting in three normal directions, right? And the shearing strains on the three planes like this, three more planes, right? That is how the new yz, new xz, new xy transpose, which is 6 by 1 vector. Corresponding to that, we do have the stress vector given by the normal stresses sigma x, sigma y, sigma z, three normal stresses, and the shearing stresses, right? Tau yz, tau xz, and tau xy transpose, which is 6 by 1 vector. Then we also discussed in previous discussions the relation, the stress and strain relationships. Sigma is equal to d multiplied by epsilon, where d is called material property matrix. In the previous, please refer back to our previous video wherein we have derived for 3D continuum what is material property matrix, D matrix, which is 6 by 6 matrix, students, right? Now, even we know the strain vector is now given by this, the normal strain in x direction as dou u by dou x, right? Normal strain in y direction as dou v by dou y, and normal strain in z direction as dou w by dou z, and the shearing strain nu yz as nu yz, right? Therefore y, right, and dou by dou y with respect to w, dou by dou z with respect to v. That is how dou w by dou y plus dou w by dou z, the first term. The other two terms are dou u by dou z plus dou w by dou x, dou u by dou y plus dou v by dou x. You please see that we do have here new yz, right? Y its a cross term is w, therefore z its a cross term, cross plane or term is v. That is how the other two more shearing strains are written in cyclic fashion, right? There is a strain displacement relationships or vector, which is 6 by 1 vector, and the body forces can be resolved into three coordinate directions, right? Fx, fy, fz respectively, right? Similarly, the traction forces, if any, which are acting can be resolved. If all these traction forces are acting, they can be resolved into fx, fy, fz, three coordinate directions respectively, right? And the concentrated, right, that is how tx, ty, tz, and the concentrated loads, if any, they can also be resolved into, right, px, py, pz respectively. Therefore all the forces can be resolved into three Cartesian coordinate directions, students, right? This is how x and y and z directions respectively, right? Now that is how now I'll take one element from this 3D continuum. This is a 3D continuum actually, right? Out of which I'm just taking one element like this, right? One element which is a 3D four-noded tetrahedron, right? Now I'll show that like this, right? I've just taken out that is how 3D four-noded tetrahedron. I do have the, right, first node, second node, third node as the base, and this is the fourth node, right? This is a one element which I have taken from the 3D continuum, right, which is resembling this, right? Now next, here you please see that the different node numbers are like this, right? Node 1, right, and node 2, node 3 at the base, and at the apex point, right, node 4, right? Then the Cartesian coordinates of these nodes are respectively, the first one, that of the node 1 is x1 y1 z1, that of the node 2 x2 y2 z2, that of the node 3 x3 y3 z3, and that of node 4 x4 y4 z4. Then similarly, now if I take any ith node, right, then how the degrees of freedoms are given by, right, in this front direction, x direction, q3i minus 2, in y direction it is given by q3i minus 1, and in z direction it is given by q3i. If I just apply this for the first node, let us say apply, right, 3 multiplied by 1 minus 2, therefore now I'll get q1. Hence the degree of freedom in x direction at the node 1 is q1. Similarly, at the node 2, q3 multiplied by 1, 3 minus 1 means 2, that is how q2, right? Then for the third degree of freedom, 3 multiplied by 1, q3, that is how I'll get at the node 1, the degrees of freedoms are q1, q2, q3, q1, q2, q3 respectively. Likewise, now you can go to the other nodes, right? That is how at the node 2, right, q4, q5, q6, then at the node 3, q6, q7, q8, at the node 4, q9, q10, q10, q11, q12, right? That is how 12 degrees of freedoms will be there, right? Then that is how that total degrees of freedoms are 12. Hence the nodal displacement vector, which is 12 by 1 vector, student, which is q1, q2 dash up to q12, right? Transpose, which is 12 by 1 vector. Now, or if I have all the elements, then I do have the displacement vector capital Q, right, given by capital Q1, capital Q2 dash dash up to Qn, n where n is the nth total degrees of freedom, where n is the total degrees of freedom, right, and generally it is a multiple of 3 because each node has 3 degrees of freedoms, 3 degrees of freedoms, right. Now I'll consider a point within this interior of this element anywhere, right, which can displace in x direction by an amount of u, in y direction by an amount of v, and in z direction by an amount of w. That is how here it is shown that interior point can displace by an amount of u, v, w respectively. That is what we are supposed to find or interpolate from the interpolation functions or shape functions. Now once I do that, then I'll totally discretize the entire continuum, this entire continuum into n number of elements, students, right? Then out of which I've just shown one element, right? There is a one element. It's 4 nodes have right, 12 degrees of freedoms in local coordinate system, right? Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, Q5, Q6, Q7, Q8, Q9, Q10, Q11, Q12 along the local coordinate direction. However, with respect to the global Cartesian coordinate system, what are the degrees of freedoms, whether that is capital Q1, capital Q2, Q3 dash dash, I can make a note. That is how this element connectivity table will establish the relation between the degrees of freedoms in local coordinate system to that of the global coordinate system. That is a use of this element connectivity table. Like that you go on writing for the other elements also, right? For the second element, right, what are the degrees of freedoms in local coordinate system, how they are mapping with that of the degrees of freedoms in global coordinate system, right? Then I hope students you are understanding this. Now we'll move to the derivations of the shape functions, right? These are the Lagrange shape functions, and these are the linear shape functions, right? For this element, what you have considered 3D 4 node tetrahedron element. Now I'll draw a master element, right? However, please make a note that master element is having a base 1, 2, 4. In the previous case, I have just denoted 1, 2, 3 as the base, and the fourth node was at apex point. Now in the master element, we are assuming that this one is along local xi eta zeta direction, or local coordinate system, or non-dimensional coordinate system, or intrinsic coordinate system. All the 4 axes represent the same, right? Therefore xi eta zeta space, therefore I am just moving in xi direction by 1 unit so as to reach this node 1, right? I'm not moving by any amount along eta and zeta directions. However, for this node I am moving by 1 unit along eta direction. Therefore its coordinate in local coordinate system is given by 0, 1, 0, whereas that of the first node was given by 1, 0, 0. Similarly, in order to reach this node 3, I'll move in the upward direction by 1 unit. Therefore its coordinate in local coordinate system is given by 0, 0, 1, whereas the node 4 is at the origin, right, 0, 0, 0. That is how the master element coordinate axis in coordinates in local coordinate system, right? Then once we see this master element, then I'll go to the derivations of the shape functions. These are the linear shape functions, students. We already discussed in previous discussions also. The now first derivation is a derivation of the shape function n1, right? Therefore the first node is along the z direction. Therefore this node, if load is applied at this node 1, then it will absorb totally 100% load, and it leaves 0 to the node 2, 3 and 4 respectively, right? To the, if load is applied at the node exactly on the node 1, it will absorb totally 100%, means it gets 100% contribution and leaves 0.000% contribution to the other nodes 2, 3, 4 respectively. Therefore, that is how the shape function variation. Shape function variation means it is having one ordinate here. By the time it goes to this plane where this plane access from this master element, we can say that here it is 1, its ordinate is equal to 1. By the time it goes to this node 2, 3 and 4, it becomes 0, means it is becoming 0 on this plane where the equation of this plane is given by xi is equal to 0, right? Because it is perfectly there on this plane eta zeta plane will have the equation of the equation of this plane as xi is equal to 0. Therefore, that is how now the shape function can be written as using the product rule as n1 is equal to c1 multiplied by xi, right? n1 xi eta zeta. n1 is a function of the xi eta zeta, right? Local coordinate direction or local coordinates or natural coordinates xi eta zeta. Therefore, n1 is equal to c1 multiplied by xi along local x direction. But from the properties of the shape functions, we know that n1 is equal to 1 at 1, 0, 0. Therefore, if I substitute that, now I'll get c1 is equal to 1. Back substituting which, now I'll get n1 is equal to xi. Similarly, you can do the derivations of the shape functions for the node 2. Node 2 means here the equation of this plane, or the plane is connected by these three nodes 1, 3, 4. There is a triangle. Therefore, the equation of this line is equal to eta is equal to 0. Therefore, n2 is equal to c2 multiplied by eta. Where substituting 0, 1, 0, now I'll get c2 is equal to 1. Back substituting which, now I'll get n2 is equal to eta. And doing the same for the node 3. For node 3, here this n3 is becoming 0 on this plane connected by 1, 2, 3 triangle, right? Where the equation of this is eta is equal to 0. Therefore, n3 is equal to c3 multiplied by eta. But substituting the properties of the shape function, that at node 3, 0, 0, 1, c3 is equal to 1. Hence, I'll get n3 is equal to zeta. Now, coming to the top, the derivation of the fourth shape function, student, right? For this fourth node, you please see that if load is applied at node 1, node 4, it is 1 unit here, right? By the time it comes to this sloping surface, right? The sloping surface is given by this triangle 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Therefore, what is the equation of this sloping surface, right? The equation of this sloping surface is 1 minus xi minus eta minus zeta. Therefore, now I'll write by the time it comes to these three nodes 1, 2, 3, if these three are connected by a surface that is having this equation as 1 minus xi minus eta minus zeta. Therefore, n4 is equal to c4 multiplied by 1 minus xi minus eta minus zeta. However, the properties of the shape functions, that n4 is equal to 1 at its own node, fourth node 0, 0, 0. Substituting which, now I'll get, right? Say c4 is equal to 1, or n4 is equal to 1 minus xi minus eta minus zeta. These are the four shape functions, students, for this four node tetrahedron element. Right? Now, let us go to the next subheading as the displacements. Now I'll interpolate the displacements using these linear shape functions. You please see that all these n1, n2, n3, n4 are varying linearly with respect to the xi, eta, zeta. And even the fourth property is that n1 plus n2 plus n3 plus n4. You can see that xi plus eta plus zeta plus 1 minus xi minus eta minus zeta is equal to 1. Hence, even it is satisfying that summation of all the shape functions, sum of ni, I is equal to 1 to 4 is equal to 1. Yes, hence these shape functions are correct. Now, once we do that, now I'll interpolate the displacements. That's how the next subheading has the displacements using these shape functions, right? Interpolation using these linear shape functions. We know that u is equal to n cube However, here u is a 3 by 1 vector which is given by u vw, and that the displacements u vw can be interpolated using these shape functions n1, n2, m3, n4, n4, using the degrees of freedoms along x, y, z directions, in Cartesian coordinate system as q1, q2, q3, right? Similarly, q4, q5, q6, q7, q8, q9, q10, q11, q12. Therefore, now I can say that the displacement of any interior point within that the four node tetrahedron is interpolated as n1 multiplied by q1, n2 multiplied by q4, and n3 multiplied by q7, and n4 multiplied by q10. Likewise, in y direction also, and also z direction, you can write these in a cyclic rotation fashion. Right now, I'll put these three displacements functions or fields in a matrix format, students, right? Therefore, that is a u vw, which is 3 by 1 vector, and I do have q1, q2 dash dash up to q12. Therefore, that is my nodal displacement vector, which is 12 by 1 vector, right? And if I multiply this row, first row, operate upon this column, then I should get this u displacement in x direction. Therefore, we can see from this that n1 multiplied by q1. However, this displacement u is not related with the degrees of freedoms q2, q3. However, it is connected once again with the degree of freedom in x direction, n2 multiplied by q4, right? So on and so forth up to n4 multiplied by q10. Right? Likewise, you can see that v is now given by 0 multiplied by q1, and n1 multiplied by q2, 0 multiplied by q3, so on and so forth, plus n4 q11, and lastly that of the displacement w is 0 multiplied by q1, 0 multiplied by q2, but n1 multiplied by q3, plus so on and so forth up to n4 multiplied by q12, this n4 multiplied by q12. That is how now I have the shape function matrix, n matrix, as 3 by 12 matrix, right, which is now given by n1 0 0, n2 0 0, n3 0 0, n4 0 0, 0 n1, 0 n2, 0 n3, 0 n4, 0 0 n1, 0 0 n2, 0 0 n3, 0 0 n4, which is called the shape function matrix, 3 by 1 matrix, operated upon this nodal displacement vector or element displacement vector. 12 by 1 vector will give a displacement vector 3 by 1, right? Okay, students, I hope you understood what is the displacement and its interpolation from the shape functions. Now let us move to the next subheading as isoperimetric formulations. Now, iso means the same shape function of the same order which were used to interpolate the displacements will also be used to interpolate the geometry. Therefore, now I'll take that of the interior point P anywhere, right? The coordinates of that interior point P are given by xyz. Therefore, those xyz are now given by this xyz can be interpolated using the Cartesian coordinates of these four nodes as x1 y1 z1 x2 y2 z2 dash dash up to x4 y4 z4, that are the node 4, right, using those same shape functions n1 n2 m3 n4, right? Therefore, that is how x is equal to summation of ni xi, where I is equal to 1 to 4 means the shape functions will be used to interpolate the geometry as for the first node n1 multiplied by x1, right, n2 multiplied by x2, and n3 multiplied by x3, and n4 multiplied by x4, right? That is how it is called summation of ni xi, where I is equal to 1 to 4. Similarly, you may do in a cyclic fashion for the other coordinates y and z. Therefore, that is how y is equal to n1 y1 plus n2 y2 n2 n3 y3 plus n4 y4. Z is equal to N1 Z1 plus N2 Z2 N3 Z3 plus N4 Z4. That is how the isoparametric formulation. From this we'll get the geometry is interpolated. Now I'll substitute what are n1, n2, n3 values in terms of the shape functions. We know n1 is equal to xi and n2 is equal to eta and n3 is equal to zeta, and n4 is equal to 1 minus xi minus eta minus zeta. Therefore, substituting which, now I'll get these three equations as x is equal to xi multiplied by x1 plus eta multiplied by x2 in zeta multiplied by xi plus 1 minus xi minus eta multiplied by x4, and the other two more equations, right? Then I'll write this the first equation x as x4 which is a constant, right? And x1 minus x4 are, that is given by x14 notated as x14 means xij is equal to xi minus xj, x1 minus x4 multiplied by xi, right? Similarly, x2 minus x4 multiplied by eta, x3 minus x4 multiplied by zeta. Now all using that xij is equal to xi minus xj. I'll write this first equation, or the coordinate x as x4 plus x1 for xi, x2 for eta plus x3 for zeta. Similarly, you can write in a cyclic fashion the other coordinates y and z as y4 plus y1 for xi, y2 for eta, y3 for zeta. Z is equal to z4, z1 for xi plus z2 for eta plus z3 for zeta, right? That is how the coordinates are now written in terms of the Cartesian coordinates and as a function of the polynomial xi, eta, zeta. That is how we can interpolate. Now I'll differentiate this first equation dou x with respect to dou xi. Then I'll get x14. Similarly, I'll differentiate this x first equation with respect to eta. I'll get x24, and if I differentiate this x first equation with respect to zeta, now I'll get x34. In a cyclic fashion, right? You can see that if I differentiate the second and third equations with respect to xi, eta, zeta, now I will get in a similar fashion as dou y by dou xi is equal to y14, dou y by dou eta is equal to y24, and dou y by dou zeta is equal to y34, dou z by dou xi is equal to z14, dou z by dou eta is equal to z24, dou z by dou zeta is equal to z34, right? Just only what is the change is x will become y will become z in a cyclic fashion, right? However, these 1 4 will not change, 1 minus 4 will not change, right? That is all. Then we will go back to those displacement equations, students. Then we know that u is equal to n1 q1 plus n2 q4 plus n3 q7 plus n4 q10. Now I'll substitute what is n1 is equal to xi, and n2 is equal to eta, and n3 is equal to zeta, and n4 is equal to 1 minus xi minus eta minus zeta. Therefore, doing which, now I'll get u is equal to q10 plus q1 minus q10, and q4 minus q10, and q7 minus q10, multiplied by zeta. Once I get this, u is equal to q10 plus q1 minus q10 xi, q4 minus q10 eta, q7 minus q10 zeta. Then what I'll do is I'll just differentiate this with respect to xi. Now I'll get dou u by dou xi is equal to q1 minus q10. Similarly, if I differentiate that u with respect to eta, now I'll get q4 minus q10, and if I differentiate that u with respect to zeta, then I'll get q7 minus q10, right? Then once I get this in a cyclic fashion, you can prove the others as say dou v by dou xi is equal to q2 minus q11, dou v by dou eta is equal to q5 minus q11, and dou v by dou zeta is equal to q8 minus q11, and dou w by dou xi is equal to q3 minus q12, dou w by dou eta is equal to q6 minus q12, dou v by dou zeta is equal to q9 minus q12, right? This is how you can even simply remember, student, right? U changing cyclically to v, to W, then Q1 cyclically changing to Q2 to Q3, right? Therefore 10 changing to 11 to 12, right? Here on the 10, 11, 12 are common. However, these are now changing cyclically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That is how you can remember in a cyclic fashion also, right? Then once I get this the values, then I'll go to the chain rule of differentiation, because here the u displacement is a function of xyz Cartesian coordinate system. However, these xyz coordinates are mapped with local coordinate system xi, eta, zeta. Therefore, using the chain rule of differentiation, student, now I can say the differentiation of any function f, that f may be a displacement u, or it may be v, or it may be w as appropriate, right? Therefore, that dou f by dou xi or dou u by dou xi is equal to dou u by dou x by dou xi plus dou u by dou y by dou xi, dou u by dou zeta, dou z by dou xi. Similarly, doing this with respect to eta and zeta, you will get dou u by dou x by dou eta, dou u by dou y by dou eta, dou u by dou z by dou eta. And similarly, for the third time, if you do dou u by dou zeta, right? That is dou u by dou xi, dou u by dou x by dou zeta, dou u by dou y by dou zeta, dou u by dou z by dou zeta, right? Like this, right? Therefore, even if you change this displacement function u to v, you will get similarly 3 more equations, right? And that changing to w, you will get 3 more equations. That is how you will get 9 equations of the strain displacement relationships, right? These are the strains in local coordinate system, and whereas these are the displacements in Cartesian coordinate systems. And now I can write the same in a matrix format, students, as dou u by dou xi, dou u by dou eta, and dou u by dou zeta. These first 3 equations, actually I have just written only one equation, student. I have explained already 2 more, right? Like that, actually 3 plus 3 plus 3, there are 9 equations, of which now we'll consider these 3 simultaneous equations, which are now put in the matrix format as dou u by dou xi, dou u by dou eta, dou u by dou zeta, as 3 by 1 vector obtained as dou u by dou x operated upon dou x by dou xi, right? And dou u by dou y operated upon dou y by dou xi, right? Similarly, dou u by dou z operated upon dou z by dou xi. Similarly, other equations can also be written as a product of this matrix over this vector, right? As now you please see that the first row is with respect differentiation with respect to xi, right? Whereas the second one is with respect to eta, the third one is with respect to zeta, right? Therefore, there is a dou by dou xi, dou by dou eta, dou by dou zeta. Now that is how you open a 3 by 3 matrix, wherein you just write first dou by dou xi in the first row, dou by dou eta in the second row, and dou by dou zeta in the third row. Whereas here I can write in a cyclic fashion as x, y, z respectively, that operated upon dou u by dou x, dou u by dou y, dou u by dou z. Whereas this matrix is what called Jacobian of transformation matrix, which is 3 by 3 matrix, right? Which is given by this dou x by dou xi, dou y by dou xi, dou z by dou xi, dou x by dou eta, dou y by dou eta, dou z by dou eta, and dou x by dou zeta, dou y by dou zeta, dou z by dou zeta, which is 3 by 3 matrix. However, we already know what is the dou x by dou xi. Just now we already seen here, right? Dou x by dou xi is nothing but x14, and dou x by dou eta is equal to x24. and dou x by dou zeta is equal to x3 4. Now I'll just substitute those values. In a similar fashion, if I substitute the other, now I'll get the first row as x14 y14 z14 in a cyclic fashion. Now you go to the other two more rows as x24 y24 z24 x34 y34 z34. Right? This is what the Jacobian of transformation is, a constant matrix. A constant matrix. It doesn't depend upon any polynomial xi, eta, zeta. Hence it is a constant. Means x1 minus x4 both are constant. Hence it is a constant matrix, students. Because we already taken the linear shape function. Linear shape function. Therefore, this is the function of xi, eta, zeta. After one differentiation, the linear shape function will become a constant, right? That is how it led to constant matrix. Now I'll invert this above equation so that I'll get the displacements with respect, the strains with respect to Cartesian coordinate systems. Right? Here you please see that this Jacobian J is transforming the strain terms from local coordinate system to global coordinate system. That is from local coordinate system to global coordinate system. That is why it is called Jacobian of transformation. And so, by inverting that equation, that matrix, now I'll get dou u by dou x, dou u by dou y, dou u by dou z is equal to Jacobian inverse. This Jacobian inverse, if this go to the left side, operated upon dou u by dou z, dou u by dou eta, dou u by dou zeta, right? Then, however, now I'll find out what is the inverse of this Jacobian, which is 3 by 3 matrix, students. Then you already know that it is given by 1 by det j. What is det j? Det j is nothing but x14 multiplied by this y24 multiplied by y34 minus y34 multiplied by y24, right? Minus y14 multiplied by x24 multiplied by z34 minus x34 multiplied by z24 plus z14 multiplied by x24 multiplied by z34 minus x34 multiplied by z24. That is how the determinant of this 3 by 3 matrix is given by this. Determinant of this Jacobian is given by this. And once I find out the determinant, then I'll find out the cofactor matrix, right? Therefore now I'll put them here, right? Therefore in the place of x14, its cofactor matrix is given by y24 multiplied by z34 minus z24 multiplied by z34. That is how the cofactor matrix of this first row, right? Likewise you do for the others, right? Then that is how you will get the Jacobian inverse, which is 3 by 3 matrix now. 3 by 3 matrix, right? Now I'll replace this y24 z34 minus y34 z24 divided by det j as a11, that is how, right? Therefore this is how j11 Jacobian first coefficient z11, sorry, j11 first row, first column, right? First row, second column, first row, third column, so on and so forth, right? That is how. Now I'll write the Jacobian inverse as 1 by det j, j11, j12, j13 dash dash up to j33. However, now I'll replace this j11 divided by det j as a11, right? j12 divided by det j as a12, and j13 divided by det j as a13, and so on and so forth up to the last one, j33 divided by det j is equal to a33, right? Therefore this A is now called the Jacobian inverse matrix. Jacobian inverse matrix given by this expression or equation. And you please see that this Jacobian is independent of xi, eta, zeta. Hence it is a constant matrix as we already discussed. Now I'll take the summation of this first row as a11 plus a12 plus a13. I'll notate that as a1 bar. Similarly, the summation of the second row as a21 plus a22 plus a23 is equal to a2 bar. and summation of the third row as A31 plus A32 plus A33 as A3 bar, right? Then once I do that, what now I'll do is I'll write similarly. This is how you'll get three simultaneous equations, students, right? By using this Jacobian inverse, A operated upon dou u by like this, right? A11, A12, A13 dash dash up to A33 operated upon dou u by dou x, dou u by dou eta, dou u by dou eta and dou u by dou zeta. But we already know that what are these terms, right? These terms are like this, right? What is that dou u by dou xi? Dou u by dou xi is nothing but q1 minus q10. We already seen in the previous discussions. Similarly, dou u by dou eta is q4 minus q10, and lastly dou u by dou zeta is equal to q7 minus q10. Therefore, now we would have q1, q2, q3, q1, q4, q7 and q10, all the three terms, right? Operate upon each of these, right? Now you just operate this first row on this column. Now I'll get a11 multiplied by q1 minus q10, right? a12 operated upon q4 minus q10, a13 operated upon q7 minus q10 is equal to dou u by dou x means that is what the normal strain epsilon x, right? Now I'm just bringing that, please see here, students, right? Dou u by dou x is what that first equation. However, that first equation I can write as a matrix product, right? As say, this is how even the other terms I'll recall: the normal strains in y and z directions, as well as the shearing strains in the along the three planes, right? Along three planes. And so now I'll write this 6 by 1 strain vector as a product of 6 by 12 matrix operated upon the nodal displacement vector 12 by 1 matrix. 6 by 12 operated upon 12 by 1 will give 6 by 1 matrix. That is how the normal strain along x direction is equal to just now we have seen discussed that a11 operated upon q1, a11 here. Let me go back, right? a11 operated upon q1, right? Even a11 is also operated upon minus q10, right? We'll see that, right? And next, q2 is not there, q3 is not there, right? Those terms are 0 0, but next q4 is there multiplied by a12. Also a12 is also operated upon minus q10, right? And q5, q6 are not there, they are 0 0 coefficients, right? a13 multiplied by q7 minus q10. Therefore, that is how that first row is now written like this, right? a11 plus a11 multiplied by q1, right? And 0 multiplied by q2, 0 multiplied by q3, a12 multiplied by q4, and 0 multiplied by q5, 0 multiplied by q6, a13 multiplied by q7, right? Then 0 multiplied by q8, 0 multiplied by q9, right? But however, in the 10th coefficient of this first row is the summation of a minus a11 minus a12 minus a13. Therefore, now I can say that this is notated as a1 bar, summation of that first row of that A matrix, Jacobian inverse matrix, and so minus a1 bar multiplied by q10, right? Then 0 multiplied by q11, 0 multiplied by q12. Then in a cyclic fashion, student, now we can check dou v by dou y, the normal strain along y direction, as right here a11 will become a21, right? a12 will become a22, a13 will become a23. This minus a1 bar will become a2 bar, and similarly the third row dou w by dou zeta, right? Normal strain along z direction is A1 will become A31, A12 will become A32, A13 will become A33, and this minus A1 bar will become A A3 bar, A3 bar, right? In a cyclic rotation fashion, you can observe that, right? And next, I should get the normal strains along the three more planes is the the first one is dou v by dou xi, dou v by dou z, dou w by dou y, means this dou v by dou z is obtained as the sixth equation, and dou w by dou y is obtained as eighth equation, because you already written nine equations, right? That is how you recall those equations, and you sum up to get this normal strain along this plane. However, by writing those coefficients now, I can say that I'll get 0 multiplied by q1, a31 multiplied by q2, a21 multiplied by q3, or even you can observe that this is nothing but you leave this first row because this is that of the x, right? Therefore yz, right, these terms, right, a31 is brought here and a21 is brought here, right? In a similar fashion you can do that. A32 is brought here and a22 is brought here, right? Similarly a33 is brought here and a23 is brought here, and this minus a31 bar is brought here, and this minus a2 bar is brought and copied here, right? In a similar fashion you can do the other two more rows as a31 0, a11, a32 0, a12, a33 0, a13 minus a31 bar 0 minus a1 bar, right? And the last row as a21, a11 0, a22, a12 0, a23, a13 0 minus a2 bar minus a a1 bar 0 respectively, right? This is what called the strain displacement matrix, right? Strain displacement matrix given by this equation, right? This is how that equation as a11 0 0, a12 0 0, a13 0 0 minus a1 bar 0 0, right? So on and so forth, which is the last one. Last row is a21 a11 0, a22 a12 0, a23 a13 0 minus a2 bar minus a1 bar 0 0, right? Then this is what the strain displacement matrix, which is 6 by 12 matrix. I hope students you understood the derivation of the strain displacement matrix. Now we'll move to the next subheading as element stiffness matrix, KE matrix. We already know that element, if you consider the strain energy term of that potential energy, then I can write that strain energy as you have discussed in previous videos. You can do in a similar fashion to prove that that strain energy can for one element can be written as half q transpose KEQ, where KE is nothing but the integration over the volume V transpose dB dV. However, here integration of dV will lead to volume of that element. Therefore, here the element stiffness matrix is of 12 by 12 size. 12 by 12 size means in total 144 element coefficients are there. This is a huge matrix now, right? Just for one element of this 3D 4 node tetrahedron element, I require 144 coefficients, 12 by 12. Very large space is required for storing of this computer, right? Now, and that is how the element stiffness matrix is obtained. Once we get that, now I'll move to element body force vector, student. Then taking the work done by this body forces, now I can write that in standard format as half q transpose multiplied by Fe, where Fe is element body force vector given by this vector as 12 by 1 vector, that the body forces which are resolved along the three Cartesian coordinate directions fx, fy, fz multiplied by that volume VE of that element 3D 4 node tetrahedron element VE. However, if the load is acting at the CG, obviously it will distribute the load equally to the 4 nodes. Hence, outside I'll get 1 by 4 as a constant. That indicates that it is distributing equally to all the 4 nodes, right? Because the load is acting at the CG, right? In a similar fashion, it will distribute equally to other 3 more nodes, right? Hence, the element body force vector is now given by VE multiplied VE by 4 multiplied by Fx Fy Fz Fx Fy Fz Fx Fy Fz Fx Fy Fz transpose, which is 12 by 1 vector, right? Now, if you understood that, now I'll move to the next subheading as element traction force vector notated by TE. However, the element traction forces will be acting on one plane like this, student, right? Therefore, if it is acting on that one particular plane, then it will distribute the loads to those 3 nodes which are attached to this plane, and it will not leave any load to that fourth node, right? Then which is self-explanatory. Let us say this is acting on this plane 1 2 3, then the load contribution to the fourth node is zero, right? That is how you already know that. Hence, now I'll take the work done by these traction forces, and I can prove, as you have seen in the previous discussions and previous videos. You please refer back to those videos, right? As half QE multiplied by half Q transpose multiplied by TE, where TE is called element traction force vector, because now the traction forces are acting on this plane like this, right? Therefore, generally they are presumed to be acting at the CG of this element. Once it is acting at the CG, then obviously it will distribute equally to all the 3 nodes along all the 3 Cartesian coordinate directions. Hence, outside this I do have a constant 1 by 3 operated upon the traction forces operated upon the area of this plane 1 2 3 or 1 3 4 as appropriate, any plane, right, on which the surface traction force is acting, right? That is how the Tx Ty Tz multiplied by Ae by 3 at node 1, right, along the 3 Cartesian coordinate directions. Similarly, at 2 3 nodes also, Tx Ty Tz multiplied by Ae by 3 and Tx Ty Tz multiplied by Ae by 3. If it is acting on the surface plane connected by 1 2 3, only these 3 plus 3 plus 3, 9 coefficients will be there. However, this fourth one is 0, 0 plus 0, right? However, here I have written in general, right, keeping in view that you make any 3 coefficients here 0. Here it is, if it is acting on the plane 1 2 3, then these 3 terms are 0 0 0. It will not leave any load to that fourth node. That is how. Now I have written a generalized equation. Now let us examine a numeric problem, student, right? Now let me see this numeric problem, wherein if a problem is given like this, right, where let us examine. Now, before I go to the problem, let me see how the mesh can be prepared. If I take a tetrahedron element like this, then it can be divided into n number of tetrahedra, right? Here I've just divided into 5 number of tetrahedra, right? This cube is now divided into 5 number of tetrahedra, right? That is how it is now shown, right? Having the nodes 1 2 3 4 5 dash dash dash, right? That is how. Whereas you please see that this 164 is what? Continuation. Then another node 2, right? And similarly, you please see that this 174 is common. I have just detached it, right? And this 3 is continuation. Likewise, you can understand the other, this one. That is how the discretization of this cube into 5 number of 3D 4-noded tetrahedra. However, if I just discretize like that, then I do have element numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and local node numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which are related with the global node numbers. One for the first element it is 1, 4, 2, 6, and for the second element it is 1, 4, 3, 7 dash dash, right? And if I just divide this into this cube into say 6 number of tetrahedra like this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then that is how the element 1 is having 1, 2, 3, 4 as the global node numbers, as local node numbers as 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You please see this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? That is how 1, 2, 8, 5, 1, 1, 2, 8, 5, and so on and so forth. Each of these element is having the node numbers in global coordinate direction as seen in with respect to the local coordinate degrees of local coordinates, right? That is how the element connectivity table will establish the relation between the local and global degrees of freedoms, right? Now once we see that, now let us see a numeric problem, application problem of this. Now this is how a 4-node tetrahedron object, that is how this is a 4-node tetrahedron object is given, which is fixed at one plane like this, right? And the coordinate dimensions are shown here, right? There is the node 4 is at the origin, and at the node 1 is at 0, 1, 1, and node 2 is at 0, 0, 1, and node 3 at 1, 0, 0. Each of these are 1 unit systems. All units are consistent units, and these are in terms of now inches. All these dimensions are in inches, students, and we are there in pound inch system, right? Working system is pound inch, right? And this material is a steel material, right? This is a steel material having Young's modulus is equal to 13 to the power 6 pound per square inch. This is exactly 2 to the power 5 Newton per mm square. And the Poisson's ratio of the steel is equal to 0.3. And node 2, 3, 4 are fixed, right? Like this. Node 2, 3, 4 are fixed only. Node 1 is a free end at which a load of 100 pounds is acting, like this. 100 pounds is acting. Then obviously we'll try to deform. Then what is now asked is determine this displacement at node 1. You please see that I'm just doing this demo, right? Here the node 1 is deforming. Right? That is how you find out the deformation of this node 1, then using single element only. Just manual calculation, I want to do that manual calculation, hence I'm taking only single element. Just now we have seen the Jacobian matrix was a constant, therefore you just I do have the information what is x1, y1, z1 dash dash up to x4, y4, z4. If you just substitute that here, x1, this is x14, y14, z14, therefore x1 is 0 minus x4 0, therefore x14 is equal to 0. Similarly y14, y1 minus y4, 1 minus 0 is equal to 1, right? Similarly z1 minus z4 is equal to 1 minus 0 is equal to 0. That is how now you get the first row, second row, and third row respectively. That is how my Jacobian matrix is a constant matrix, students. It is a constant. It doesn't depend upon the polynomial xi, eta, zeta. Similarly, now once I get this Jacobian, I can find out it's a Jacobian inverse, student, which is a inverse of this 3 by 3 matrix. You know how to invert a matrix of 3 by 3 size. Then upon inversion, you'll get this matrix as 0, minus 1, 1, 1 minus 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, right? 0, 1, 0, right? That is all. Then once I get this Jacobian inverse, right? Jacobian inverse. Then you may use that for finding out the strains or the um, the displacements also. Now let us see this, where here the displacement of the sorry, here a tetrahedron is given like this. Tetrahedron is given where the base is 1 2 3, right, and the apex point is 4. All the coordinates are given for the node 1, node 2, node 3, right. And node 1 is 10 5 0, node 2 30 0 0, right, and node 3 20 25 0, and node 4 15 15 20 respectively along xyz coordinate system. That is how it is. Just a 3D 4 node tetrahedron is given. All these dimensions are in mm. Then what is given is you find the displacement of this base of this tetrahedron, this base. Then I think it is very simple, right. Once the base triangle 1 2 3 is having the coordinates x1 y1 x2 y x1 y1 z1 x2 y2 z2 x3 y3 z3, from which you can locate the cg of this base cg, right. That is a very first step, student. You can locate the cg of this base, and once you locate the cg of this base, right, then if the load is applied at the cg, obviously it will contribute a load of 1 by 3 1 by 3 1 by 3 to these three nodes. Therefore n1 is equal to n2 is equal to n3 is equal to 1 by 3, whereas it will not contribute any load to the node 4. Therefore n4 is equal to 0 for this particular problem. If at all you are interpolating the displacements of this base triangle 1 2 3, then there is no contribution from this fourth node. Therefore n4 is equal to 0 for this particular problem, right. If at all that point is there in between any one of these planes, then n4 will also be there, right. Therefore obviously, because now we have just taken this triangle 1 2 3, then that 3D 4 node tetrahedra has reduced to a 2D 3 noded triangular element like this. 2D 3 noded triangular element. Then obviously I know what is the shape function of this first and second and third nodes respectively. In the previous video, student, as xi eta and my xi minus eta respectively, right. Once I know these shape functions, obviously they will now work out, because we are interpolating at the cg. Obviously xi is equal to 1 by 3 and eta is equal to 1 by 3, and 1 minus xi minus eta is equal to 1 minus 2 by 3 means 1 by 3 once again, right. And once I get that 1 by 3 1 by 3 1 by 3, obviously I want to get the displacement of this cg. Displacement of the cg is nothing but 10 n1 multiplied by x1 10, right, n1 n2 multiplied by x2, n3 multiplied by x3. Therefore that is how 10 multiplied by 1 by 3, 30 multiplied by 1 by 3, 20 multiplied by 1 by 3 means 30 plus 30, 60 divided by 3 is equal to 20. Therefore the displacement, if these are the student, if these are the displacements of this first node and that of the second node and third node respectively, if they are given, let us say actually if they are given, let us say I'm sorry, these are the coordinates, student, right. These are the coordinates, right. If those displacements are given, let us say instead of these as the coordinates, if I assume them as the displacements, let us say the first node will displace along x direction by an amount of 10 mm, right, or 10 units, right, and in the y direction by 5 mm and z direction by 0 mm, right. Likewise that of the displacements of the second and third and fourth nodes are now given, right. Then I can interpolate the displacement of this cg as, right, n1 multiplied by q1, n1 is 1 by 3 multiplied by 10, n2 is 1 by 3 multiplied by 30, n3 is equal to 1 by 3 multiplied by 20. Therefore 30 plus 20 plus 10, 60 divided by 3. Therefore the displacement of this point P along x direction is equal to 60 divided by 3, which is 20 units. Similarly, that of the displacement along y direction is equal to 5 multiplied by 1 by 3, 0 multiplied by 1 by 3, and 25 multiplied by 1 by 3. Therefore, 30 divided by 3, 10. 10 along y direction. Similarly, that of the displacement along z direction is 0 multiplied by 1 by 3, and 0 multiplied by 1 by 3, and 0 multiplied by 3, 1 by 3. Means it will not displace in zeta direction. That is how the displacements can be interpolated. Or if need be, the using isoparametric formulation, even I can interpolate the Cartesian coordinates of this CG point also, using n1 x1 plus n2 x2 n3 x3, assuming these as, now let us say, the Cartesian coordinates. Now I can say n1 multiplied by x1, n2 multiplied by x2, and n3 multiplied by x3, right? Because this is a CG, obviously n1, n2, n3 both are 1 by 3, 1 by 3, 1 by 3 respectively. Then also 10 multiplied by 1 by 3, 30 multiplied by 1 by 3, 20 multiplied by 1 by 3. Therefore, 60 multiplied by 1 by 3 means 20 mm is the x coordinate system. Similarly, 5 plus 25 divided by 3, right? 10 is the y coordinate, and 0 is the z coordinate. For all, I am using isoparametric formulation. That is how an application problem, students, right? Then once I do this, then let me move back to the next subheading as a 3D hexahedron element, right? 3D hexahedron element, student, like this, right? Or 3D hexahedron element, or brick element, or 8-noded brick element, right? Or a cube element, like this, right? That is how the actual element, student, right, which resembles a brick like this, whereas that is now shown in the Cartesian in local coordinate system as a master cube, along xi eta zeta direction. You please see that there is at the base 1 2 3 4 in anti-clockwise direction, and anti-clockwise direction 1 2 3 4, whereas if I move in the an upper plane, I do have 5 6 7 8 as the nodes of these master cube, right? Then obviously the coordinates in local coordinate system are natural coordinate system. That of the 7th node is in positive quadrant, 1 1 1, all are positive, whereas this node 1 is negative in the negative quadrant, right? -1 -1 -1, right? Likewise, you please see that of the other nodes are now given by that of the node 2, 1 -1 -1, that of the node 3, 1 1 -1, node 4, -1 1 -1, and node 5, -1 -1 1, node 6, 1 -1 1, and node 7, 1 1 1, node 8, -1 1 1. These are the natural coordinates of this master cube element in local coordinate or natural coordinate system, xi eta zeta coordinate system. Once we know these coordinates, now I can write the generalized Lagrange shape function for any node given by this ni is equal to 1 by 8 multiplied by 1 plus xi I, 1 plus eta I, 1 plus zeta I, right? Where xi I, eta I, zeta I are the Cartesian, are the natural coordinates of these nodes. Let us say I'll go to the node 1. The natural coordinates of the node 1 are -1 -1 -1. Therefore, xi I is equal to -1, and eta I is equal to -1, zeta I is equal to -1. That is how n1 at minus 1 minus 1 minus 1. You just substitute this minus 1 minus 1 minus 1. Then I'll get the equation for the shape function as n1 is equal to 1 by 8, 1 minus xi, 1 minus zeta, 1 minus zeta. Similarly, doing at the other nodes, now I'll get n2 at 1 minus 1 as 1 by 8, 1 by 8, 1 plus xi, because this is plus 1 plus xi, and eta I is minus 1 and zeta I is also minus 1. Therefore 1 by 8, 1 plus xi, 1 minus zeta, 1 minus zeta. And in a similar fashion you can write for the other nodes. You please see that here xi operated upon eta operated upon zeta. These shape functions, all the 8 shape functions, are the cubic shape functions, right? Then and what is this 1 by 8, students, right? 1 by 8 is nothing but if the load is acting at the CG, at this CG, right? This is out that CG, right? If the load is acting at the CG, obviously it will contribute 1 by 8 of that load to each of these 8 nodes. Therefore 1 by 8, 1 by 8, 1 by 8. That is how the meaning of this 1 by 8 outside, right? That once we write these cubic shape functions, then I do have the degrees of freedom q24 by 1 vector, q1, q2, q3 dash up to q24, and now I can write the displacement which is 3 by 1 vector as u is equal to n multiplied by q, where n is nothing but n100, n200 dash up to n800. The first row operated upon q1, q2 dash up to q24, right? That is how now I'll get the displacement along the x direction. Similarly, doing the same, now we'll get the displacement along y direction, displacement along z direction respectively, right? Therefore this matrix is called the shape function matrix, notated by n, which is 3 by 24 matrix operated upon the nodal displacement vector 24 by 1. Then only it will give the displacement matrix as vector as 3 by 1 vector. Once I do that, even I can go for the next subheading as the isoparametric formulations, the same shape functions of the same order which were used to interpolate the displacements will also be used to interpolate the geometry. Therefore there is a x is equal to n1 x1 plus n2 x2 dash up to n8 x8, right? Or it is equal to summation of ni xi, where I is equal to 1 to 8, right? Similarly for y and z directions also you can write, right? That, and I think other finite element formulations can be done in a similar fashion what we have discussed for other elements, right? Now I hope students you understood these discussions. In the next class we shall meet with another discussion on the finite element methods with finite difference method with central differences, right? If you like these discussions on the structural engineering lectures on the finite element methods on our YouTube, then you please do click like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, right? We'll meet with another discussion in the next class. Till then, bye bye students.